Hey guitar players, it's Sean and welcome to today's Triads video. This is part 3 in the series, and I want to talk all about diminished and augmented chords, or as I like to affectionately call them, demented and aggravated chords. Now, there can be a lot of confusion at first about, where and when do we use these type of chords, or do I even need to know these? The answer is yes, you should know how to use these and what they're all about. It's true that they're not used as much as major chords or minor chords, but let's look into it today and hopefully I can answer some of these questions. Now, the cool thing about diminished and augmented chords is they are closely related to the ones that we've already done, so the major and the minor stuff. So augmented chords are major chords. They're almost like really major or super major chords, and diminished chords are minor chords or like very minor chords. So let's take a close look at how these things are constructed and how they sound. All right, so augmented chords are major chords. You could almost think of them as like super major in a way. And what's going on, or what I mean by that, is we have, of course, the root note. I'm on C here, so I've got my C, and then I've got my third, which is still 2 whole steps up to the E. But instead of being 1.5 steps up to the 5th, what's going on is it's actually 2 steps. Okay, so instead of G, it would be G sharp, giving us a sound like that. So here's regular major, and then augmented. So like super major. So we've got, of course, augmented means to make larger. So I have a larger distance from the 3rd to the 5th. Now, diminished chords, just like the term sounds, diminished to make smaller, what's going on is they're minor chords. They're like super minor chords. But what the deal is we've got the root note, of course, and I'm on C here, so I've got C. I've got my third, my flat third, which is 1.5 steps down. Now, normally in a minor chord, we would then have 2 steps up from there, giving us the G, but what's going on is it's actually smaller or diminished. I'm going to swap my fingering around here. So instead of being G, it's G flat, like so, and that's diminished. So we've got minor and diminished. All right, so augmented chords, as we just discussed, are major chords with a raised 5th. So check this out. This is our C major, and if we raise that 5th, there it is, that's C augmented, and that's root position, okay? And then this is C major first inversion. If I raise that 5th, which is on the 2nd string, I go from this to that, so that's now augmented. And then 2nd inversion, and if I raise that 5th, it's now augmented. Now you may have noticed that they all kind of had the same shape, and that's what's known as a symmetrical chord shape. That happens from time to time on the guitar, and this is one of them. We can use that to our advantage. All right, so moving on to strings 2, 3, and 4. So if I've got my C root position major, there's the augmented, okay? And then if I go to my first inversion, like so, that is augmented. And then if I go to my 2nd inversion, there we are, augmented. And it's, of course, the same kind of thing. We've got the symmetrical chord shape. All right, so strings 4, 5, and 6. So we've got our C. I've got the open G string there. If you want to play that up the octave, looks like so. If we want to make it augmented, there it is. Then, of course, we've got our first inversion, and I raise that G to G sharp, augmented, and then 2nd inversion, I raise that, and again, we've got the symmetrical stuff going on, which is great. And then down to strings 4, 5, and 6. So we've got the major, raise that 5th to augmented, first inversion to augmented, all right, and then 2nd inversion, now augmented and naturally symmetrical. Hey, if you're liking this content, would you mind liking and subscribing to the channel? That helps me an awful lot, and please don't be afraid to leave comments, good or bad, because that helps me to know whether this material is working for you or not, or if there's something that you would like covered in the future. Thanks a lot in advance. Let's get back to it. All right, so diminished chords. So we've got our C minor chord, so it's like a super minor chord, so it's 1.5 steps and 1.5 steps up from the root, and so here's our C minor. Now if we take our fifth, of course, and there we are. That is now C diminished. Then we had C minor first inversion. Lower that fifth. There it is, diminished. So, and then we had C minor like so, and take that fifth, and down we go. There's diminished, second inversion. Okay, so strings 2, 3, and 4. So we've got our C minor. We change that fifth, lower it, now it's diminished. Then we've got first inversion. Lower that, you might want to change your fingering around a little bit, but there it is, diminished, first inversion. And here's second inversion, and I take that G, bring it down, and now it's diminished, second inversion. And now strings 3, 4, and 5. This would be kind of challenging to do here. I'm going to have to move up the octave. So here's the C minor, so C, E flat, and G. There's diminished. And now the first inversion. There's the minor, and I take that G. Now it's diminished. And, of course, second inversion. That fifth down for diminished, second inversion. And now on to strings 4, 5, and 6, which would be the same shapes as the other ones, as the previous set. So we've got C, E, G flat. There's root position. Okay, we've got our E flat, G flat, and our C. There's our first inversion diminished. And then we had our C, E flat, and G flat for our second inversion. Down low like that, it's pretty demented sounding. Here's an example of using a diminished chord. There's a lot of songs, so I'm in the key of G here, so I'm playing a G. You'll hear this kind of progression. You'll hear like a G chord, you hear this. I'll play that again. This is a very common chord progression. And what I'm doing is I'm playing G, and then I'm playing G sharp diminished. So there's my diminished chord. And then I'm going A minor, and then to D. So that diminished chord really makes it kind of want to travel, move, up to that A minor, down to that D, back to G. Tons and tons of songs use exactly that. So a couple of great examples of augmented chords in use. There's a number of songs that do this kind of thing. So I'm playing A major here, and you'll hear this. Little chord progressions like that. So. And kind of maybe finish off like so. Now, so what I just did there is I played A major, and then that's the augmented chord right there. And then this is like what we call an A6 and an A7. We won't worry about them for today, but you hear that in those progressions quite a bit. Another great example is in a lot of blues tunes, or bluesy type tunes, they'll kind of begin or end their phrases with a chord that sounds like this. And then kind of kick into it. That's a D augmented chord. And I've just kind of added an extra, I've doubled up the root notes there in case you're wondering what I was doing. So I got a D, and then the rest of it. So there you go. That's the deal with diminished and augmented chords, how they're used, how they're constructed, and where they fit in. Now that you kind of know this, it's kind of like when you think about buying a new car, all of a sudden you start seeing those cars all over the place. you're probably going to start paying attention a little bit more subconsciously and start to kind of clue in like, oh yeah, right, that is an augmented chord, that is a diminished chord. It's all part of the musical journey. Anyway, I hope that helps. I'm Sean. We'll see you next time.